Hey guys, welcome to another episode of The Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick.
I'm Ian.
Today we're talking about the unthinkable.
Uh-oh.
And that is how streaming saved music. There's a bunch of links down below. Make sure you go check them out. There's links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist we put together every week, and the Patreon page. So make sure you go check all that out. Of course, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give us the old thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time we release new episodes. So I'm sure a lot of you out there are thinking, okay, how did streaming save music? Because for 20 years, we've all been thinking the same thing, that streaming has been kind of the downfall of music, and it's why concerts are so expensive, and why artists are pushing physical copies of music because they're not making music off streaming, which is true. But the recording industry, the music industry, has been taking advantage of musicians forever. That's something
Since the beginning, yeah.
That's something that started long before streaming. But what streaming did was mainly two things I see as positives. And yes, there are a lot of negatives also, and there's things that hopefully will change moving forward. But if you look at two main things, I think this is how streaming saved music. First off, in the digital age with things like Spotify, anyone can release an album.
SoundCloud, yeah.
Yeah, SoundCloud. There's been multiple artists that have been big through SoundCloud, right, or have gotten popular because of SoundCloud, have gotten recording contracts because of SoundCloud, or YouTube. Justin Bieber, as much as people love to hate him out there, he, including this guy, he got popular because he was found, I think it was Usher, found him. He released some YouTube videos of him playing drums. If you don't know, Justin Bieber is an incredible drummer. That's how he kind of got where he is because of that. So it's basically anyone can release an album. Before streaming, you would self-produce an album, self-release an album, and then hopefully through shows it kind of gain enough traction that maybe eventually a big label will come along, sign you to a contract, and then re-release that album. Right. But in the age of streaming, you can sit in your home recording studio with your computer, singing and recording in your closet, and put together great music and release it yourself. Mm-hmm. And it's not. I think that's, like I said, that's one of those big benefits that we have today. MXPX, which is one of my favorite bands of all time, with their self-titled album that came out in 2018. They self-released it themselves. Mm-hmm. They did a Kickstarter. They crowdsourced funds to release that album. And it was actually a pretty big release as far as independent releases go, because had they released that album a day before, they actually would have been on the Billboard 200 for that week. They were like the 201 or 202. They're just outside of the top 200.
Yeah, just in general, the technology is there for artists to, before they'd have to rent studio space, and that cost money that a band couldn't offer. A label had to do that. So now, the ease of recording and the accessibility to uploading and releasing your music is fantastic as a result of streaming. The downfalls, and this is a personal downfall. What you were describing about how it used to have to, where you had to kind of cut your teeth on clubs and bars and get out there and play live, I think was good practice for a lot of bands, especially going back to the 60s and the 70s and even the 80s.
Where you put your time in.
Where you have to kind of put your time in. And it created an element of, I wouldn't say professionalism, but it upped the game on live performance. I think that's kind of been lost a little bit now as a result of what we're talking about. It's a personal downfall, I think, and I'm probably overstating it.
I've seen a lot of younger musicians in concert, especially lately, and they're just incredible shows. Yeah. I don't know how much I kind of
it's hard to say
into that.
It's hard to say, and like I said, it's a personal view on that, and I could be overstating it a little bit, but I have noticed it. And to be fair, the streaming does offer the opportunity to play live on YouTube. Yeah. And there's a lot of artists that are doing that. Even established artists are doing that.
Well, through the pandemic, that's how a lot of them paid their bills doing live streams.
So, they're getting the practice, but really cutting their teeth on those. in that old school way. I don't know. I to me it's kind of a lost thing, but it's not something that is so detrimental that could ruin music, and it's nothing that can't change over time. That could come to a point where, I mean, I've noticed a huge uptick in people going to concerts. People that I know
absolutely.
who never talk about going to concerts, and they're like going to like 20 this year.
Yeah.
So live music is very much alive and kicking. So that could change, and I can't necessarily blame that on the streaming necessarily, but I think there in a small part there was some role.
What I will say is the downside of what I was talking about is, in some ways, I think music can get a little too diluted.
Where
you get
disposable.
Too many. Well, yeah. I think the disposability goes along with streaming. That's definitely the downside of it. Is when you have access to everything, which is the next thing I'm going to talk about, it does kind of lose some of that special feeling. The other way that I think that streaming has really helped save music is that accessibility that I was talking about. You have a band, you can take a band like Metallica, who was, for a long period of time, arguably one of the biggest bands in the world.
Yeah.
Well, in 2022, were they still one of the biggest bands ever? No. But when you have one of their songs pop up in a very popular TV show, and you have a whole new generation of kids who had never heard Master of Puppets before, they have access through Spotify, through Apple Music. They have the ability to not have to drop money that they don't have down on an album to buy it. They can go on there and stream it, and then all of a sudden, Master of Puppets is charting again because it's such a huge popular song because of the access to that kind of music.
I think a lot of older artists are benefiting from that. They're not benefiting from the financial side of streaming, but they're benefiting from the fact that they are more accessible to a younger generation who either only streams or would only buy an album if they've been able to explore the songs on the album. So I definitely agree that's probably a high point of streaming.
Well, I'll say that I think that there's been this big uptick in bands reforming and releasing new music because of the popularity that they can gain in their back catalog from these newer these younger kids discovering their music for the first time.
Absolutely.
And I think that's why you're seeing so many older bands going on tour, releasing new albums after not releasing anything for 15 or 20 years, mainly because of how popular they've been in streaming.
That's very true.
But I'll agree that it's definitely a double-edged sword because, like I said, on one hand, you've got these huge gains or the potential for huge gains in new popularity and the ease of release. But you're right. Musicians are still getting absolutely robbed when it comes to streaming, unless you're a huge musician that's able to sign, exclusive deals and things like that. Like Garth Brooks signed a big exclusive deal with Amazon. If you're one of those bigger artists, you can you can force the industry to give you more of a cut. But if you're a small band just kind of starting out, you're going to get absolutely fleeced by the industry over those recordings. And it's mainly because of streaming and how little streaming pays out. So I do understand that there's big issues there.
Well, now, like you said, that leads to higher concert ticket prices. It's not the only thing that leads to it.
Well, no, I think
you can't blame the bands for the most part.
I think the big issue with rising price for concerts is the fact that, you've got Ticketmaster who owns Live Nation, and Live Nation owns a lot of these venues. Mm-hmm. So when Live Nation is owning the venue, Ticketmaster owns Live Nation. Ticketmaster's selling these tickets.
They're greasing their own palms, basically.
Exactly. That's a big part. That's a big part of the problem. But yes, you're also musicians are just trying to survive. So yes, they have to charge more. They're going to buy into these rising prices because they're getting a better cut on those tickets. They're also selling a lot more merch. Also, the merch prices have gone up. Everything's kind of gone up because they're not making anything off their albums.
Right.
Yeah. So that's something that I know has to change. Eventually, we need to get to a point where musicians are making money off of their music. Mm-hmm. But like I said, I think that the huge positives that have come from streaming I think overshadow or outweigh a lot of those other negatives also, because, if you're a band, if you're a 80s hair metal band that hasn't released an album in 25 years, and you're able to go out there and have some kind of newfound popularity and tour and possibly release an album or just tour on your greatest hits, you're able to make money, and lots of money, because of the way the ticket prices are. You're able to make lots of money off of that older popularity because of streaming. So that's why I said that, and that's why I think that music, that streaming has largely kind of saved music in the 2000s.
I guess to sum it up for me, streaming, with all the downfalls, it's an avenue.
Yeah.
It's an avenue for basically new listeners to find new stuff. And to be honest, I've gotten to the point now where I really only use streaming to find new artists.
Yeah.
I hear about this band I've never heard of before. I'm going to go to Spotify, I'm going to look them up, and I'm going to listen to them.
Yeah.
That's pretty. And then if I like them, I'm going to buy the records or the CDs.
Yeah, because that's, in 2023, that's the best way, I think,
to support
your favorite musicians, is buying physical forms of their music, because they make more money off of that than what they're getting off of you streaming their album once or twice. Because at the end of the day, regardless of if you're a lover of vinyl records, if you're a lover of CDs, whatever you do, whatever you're into musically, I don't care if you listen to cassettes or 8-tracks, everyone streams. Almost everybody streams. There's very few people out there that don't stream music at all. They only listen to physical forms, which there are people out there, but they're very, very small.
I would say that's true even of people who don't have any subscriptions to any streaming services. They probably use YouTube for free.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of music. A lot of artists put their music on YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, Spotify has a free account you can go through and listen to music also. Yeah. So, the streaming is not going anywhere. Streaming, still makes up like 85 to 90% of the music market every year. But, I think we can, even though there's areas to improve upon, there's still all these great things that we've seen, all these advancements over the last 20 years because of streaming. Well, that's all we got for you today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Make sure you drop us a comment down below. Like I said, everyone streams. Let us know what you guys think. Do you guys think that the positives that we've seen, these big gains, over the last 20, 25 years, do you think it's a positive that we've seen from streaming, or do you still see it as a negative? Because I know there's lots of people out there that still see streaming, even though they stream, see streaming as kind of the devil when it comes to music. Let us know what you guys think, though. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give us the old thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all we got. Until next time.
Talk to y'all later.
Keep on spinning. Peace.